Have you heard of Manasseh? In this video, we will explore the fascinating story of this king who, despite facing evil and darkness, became a symbol of redemption and transformation. You might be wondering, how could someone who made so many mistakes change and become a positive example? The answer lies in how he dealt with his choices and sought a new path. Throughout the video, we'll discover how his journey is relevant for understanding the importance of repentance and personal transformation. If you have ever faced difficulties or feel lost, stay with us until the end and discover valuable lessons that can inspire your own journey. Get ready for a profound reflection that might change the way you see your challenges. Let's embark together on this journey through the life of Manasseh. Manasseh, a boy of just 12 years, took the throne of Judah during a turbulent time, surrounded by uncertainties and challenges. This early youth not only made him vulnerable, but also placed him in a position of immense power. It's fascinating to think how such a young boy could be tasked with making decisions that would affect an entire nation. What did he truly want? The quest for power and recognition consumed him, leading him down a dark path. Shortly after becoming king, Manasseh began to stray from what was right, promoting the worship of idols and instituting abominable rituals. He did not hesitate to sacrifice his own son, an act so shocking it makes us reflect on the depth of his disorientation. This leads us to understand that often, the choices we make are rooted in a desperate search for validation and control. The pressure of leading a people, combined with unchecked ambition, can steer anyone away from their core values. As we witness Manasseh's rise, we are reminded of the fragility of youth in the face of great responsibility. He was a king, but also a boy lost in a sea of expectations. The contrast between the hopes of a young person and the dark reality of his choices evokes deep emotions. We might ask ourselves, how easy is it, in moments of power, to lose oneself on a path that leads to destruction? His story serves as a warning about the consequences our choices can have, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Thus, as we progress in our narrative, we wonder, how will Manasseh deal with the consequences of his actions? This question drives us into the next chapter of his life, where darkness and redemption intertwine. Manasseh plunged into the path of darkness by turning away from the worship of the God of Israel. In his pursuit of power and recognition, he made decisions that would shock even the most hardened hearts. In his quest for acceptance, he promoted idol worship, bringing pagan practices to Judah, which included abominable rituals and even human sacrifices. Imagine the desperation that led a father to sacrifice his own son in the name of strange deities. This extreme choice makes us reflect on the fragility of human morality and how ambition can blind us to what is right. The story of Manasseh illustrates a crucial point: how easy it is to lose oneself when seeking external validation. He wanted to be recognized and powerful, but at what cost? This is a journey that many face throughout life, whether in the pursuit of status, wealth, or social acceptance. By straying from his beliefs and values, Manasseh became an example of what happens when one ignores the inner voice and succumbs to external pressures. It is vital to recognize that Manasseh's choices were not made in a vacuum. They reflect an internal struggle that many of us face, the battle between what is right and what is desired. The relentless quest for power and recognition can lead us to dark places, but this darkness can also serve as a catalyst for change. As we look at Manasseh's trajectory, we are invited to ask ourselves, how far would we go to seek acceptance, and what would we do if we found ourselves in the depths of our own darkness? Thus, the story of Manasseh is not just about a king who lost his way, but about the human capacity to err and eventually seek the path back to the light. What he experienced teaches us that even in the darkest choices, there are lessons that can guide us in our own journeys. After years of disobedience, Manasseh faced a major setback. He was captured by enemies and taken to Babylon. Imagine the scene. A young king who had lost himself in his ambitions and idolatries now finds himself imprisoned, far from his land and power. Loneliness and helplessness surrounded him. What did he want now? Freedom. But in this moment of despair, he made a crucial discovery. True freedom is not found in being a king or having power, but in finding inner peace and reconnecting with God. In Babylon, surrounded by pain and regret, Manasseh began to reflect on his choices. He realized he had traded his legacy and family for a path of darkness. The image of his son, whom he had sacrificed to idols, haunted him. Despair led him to a turning point. He cried out to God, asking for forgiveness. This act of humility was the key to his transformation. Manasseh's story is a powerful example of how repentance can lead to healing and restoration. He teaches us that recognizing our failures is the first step toward change. By opening himself to this journey of self-discovery, Manasseh found new strength within. This moment of vulnerability made him realize that even in the darkest circumstances, the light of hope can shine again. His return to the throne was not merely a return to power, but a second chance to do what is right. He was determined to correct his mistakes and reconnect with his people. This transformation was not easy, but Manasseh's courage to confront his past and seek redemption is something we can all apply to our lives. Just like him, we can find the strength to change, no matter how far we have strayed. In the end, true freedom and transformation begin within us. In Babylon, amid his suffering and solitude, Manasseh was confronted with his past choices. He, who had sought power and recognition at any cost, now found himself in a state of total despair. The weight of his actions bore an immense burden, leading him to a moment of deep reflection. It was in this agonizing scenario that he decided to turn to God, seeking forgiveness and redemption. This change of heart is a crucial point in his story. The repentance of Manasseh was not merely an empty declaration, it was a sincere cry for help. He recognized that his choices had led him to a pit, and in calling for forgiveness, he began to chart a path back. This internal transformation is a powerful example of how acknowledging our failures can be the first step towards change. Like Manasseh, many of us have felt lost and hopeless, but it is in these moments that we can open the door to transformation. Imagine the scene. A young king who had everything now finds himself imprisoned, reflecting on all he has destroyed. He realizes that true freedom does not come from power or status, but from a repentant heart willing to change. This epiphany can be likened to a light at the end of a dark tunnel. It serves as a reminder that even in the darkest situations there is always a way back. By turning to God, Manasseh teaches us that repentance is a powerful force. It is the strength that allows us to leave our mistakes behind and seek a new beginning. His story inspires us to ask, what are we willing to do to change? When we open our hearts to repentance, we are in fact opening the doors to true transformation. This is the message we should carry. It is never too late to seek help and rewrite our story. After his repentance, Manasseh was restored to the throne of Judah, an event that can be described as a true turning point in his life. He had undergone a painful and transformative process, and now, with a new perspective, his mission was clear: to bring back the worship of the true God. The first thing he did was to start removing the idols he had promoted in his kingdom, symbols of an era of darkness and disobedience. This action was not merely a physical act of cleansing, but a crucial step towards the spiritual renewal of his people. Imagine a scene where a king, who in his youth had lost himself in abominable practices, now becomes a fervent defender of the faith. This change was not easy. Many still opposed him, recalling his dark past. However, Manasseh was determined to make a difference. In restoring the worship of God, he sought not only the acceptance of religious leaders, but also reconciliation with the people. He knew that true transformation required more than superficial actions. It demanded a humble heart and a willingness to listen. Manasseh began calling meetings where he shared his experiences and the devastating impact of his past choices. He became a living example that change is possible, no matter how far someone has strayed. This journey back to the throne was not merely about regaining power, but about redeeming himself and guiding his people towards a better future. Reflecting on Manasseh's story, we are reminded that we all have the capacity to reinvent ourselves. He teaches us that true courage lies in facing our mistakes and seeking restoration. Like Manasseh, we can find strength in vulnerability and make choices that not only change our lives, but also inspire others to follow the same path. This lesson is vital. No matter how dark our journey may be, there is always the possibility of a new beginning. Manasseh became a symbol of redemption, showing that even those who make grave mistakes can find a way back. His story is a powerful testament to the transformation that can occur when we open ourselves to repentance and change. Imagine a young king who, in search of power, lost himself in dark practices, only to find the light again amid the darkness. This journey teaches us that no matter how dire our past may be, there is always room for a fresh start. When Manasseh found himself imprisoned in Babylon, he was not only physically confined, he was also in an emotional and spiritual prison. This moment of despair became a turning point. He decided to turn to God, acknowledging his failures. Repentance is the first step towards transformation. By opening himself up to the possibility of forgiveness, Manasseh shows us that true freedom begins within us. This idea is crucial. No matter how far you may have wandered, there is always an open door to change. After his return to the throne, Manasseh's transformation was radical. He not only removed the idols that had been worshipped, but also began to restore true worship to God. This courage to change is an example we can all follow. When facing challenges in our lives, it is vital to remember that change requires action and commitment. Like Manasseh, we can reinvent ourselves and make choices that reflect our deepest values. As you reflect on his journey, you may ask yourself, how can I apply this lesson in my life? The story of Manasseh invites us to look inward and recognize that each of us has the ability to change. What would you do if you could start anew? The answer may be closer than you think, requiring only the courage and determination to take the first step. The story of Manasseh is a potent reminder that we all face challenges, and that even after significant failures, transformation is possible. When we observe Manasseh's trajectory, we see that he began his journey as a king seeking power, but lost his way in dark decisions that distanced him from God. The great lesson here is that repentance is the first step towards change. When Manasseh found himself in Babylon, powerless and alone, he finally recognized his errors and cried out for forgiveness. This shows us that, regardless of how far we may have gone, there is always a path back. The need for change is something we all encounter at some point in our lives. Think of a moment when you made a mistake or a choice that did not yield the desired outcome. What happened next? Often it is easy to fall into the trap of despair and believe that there is no way out. But the story of Manasseh teaches us that true transformation comes when we decide to confront our mistakes head-on. The courage to change is one of the greatest acts of love we can have for ourselves. The power of forgiveness is also a central theme in Manasseh's journey. This forgiveness is not only from God, but also from ourselves. It is essential to understand that excessive self-criticism can imprison us, while acceptance can set us free. By forgiving himself, Manasseh not only found freedom, but also a new mission: to restore true worship to God and remove the idols he had once promoted. This transformation was not easy, but its fruits were significant, not just for him but for all the people of Judah. Thus, as we reflect on the story of Manasseh, we are invited to consider our own journey. What challenges have you faced? How have you sought transformation in your life? The journey of Manasseh inspires us to take action, seek change, and believe that we can always start anew, regardless of our past. The story of Manasseh concludes with a powerful lesson about transformation and redemption. The trajectory of a king who began in darkness and, through repentance, found the light teaches us that change is possible, no matter how far we may have strayed from the right path. Manasseh, upon recognizing his mistakes, not only sought forgiveness, but also committed to changing his behavior and his life. This transformation shows us that true freedom begins within us. Imagine the feeling of being trapped in a cycle of mistakes and poor decisions, just as Manasseh was. He had to confront the pain of his capture and the loneliness in Babylon, but it was in that despair that he turned to God. This search for help initiated his journey back. What can we learn from this? That in our darkest moments, it is possible to find a way toward recovery and transformation. Manasseh didn't just ask for forgiveness, he took action. He removed idols and restored worship to God, demonstrating that action is an essential part of repentance. This change required courage and determination, and it serves as a clear example that by facing our challenges and making conscious decisions, we can alter our destiny. Think of someone you admire for their ability to overcome adversity. What did that person do to transform their life? The story of Manasseh reminds us that we all have the capacity to write a new chapter in our lives. No matter how difficult the situation may seem, there is always room for change and growth. As you reflect on your journey, ask yourself, what will you take from this story into your own life? Transformation begins with a simple act of recognition and a willingness to act. Therefore, be inspired by the story of Manasseh and pursue your own journey of transformation.